Penguins are set to welcome in a bona fide playoff team tonight in the New Jersey Devils, and Pat and I are going to get you set for that game right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damping, and follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. And you can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. So, Pat, the Penguins will welcome in 3 Metro Division rivals this week to close out this week before they head to the break with the Four Nations Faceoff coming up. And this will be the toughest test of the 3 games this week. Yeah, they're going to be playing the Flyers. Yeah, they're going to be playing the Rangers, but those 2 teams aren't nearly as good as the Devils have been this year. The Devils come into this game 3rd in the Metro, and it looks like right now, even though they have 64 points, they're 4 points behind the Hurricanes, it doesn't look like that they're going to catch the Capitals for first in the Metro. I think we are going to get a first-round series of Carolina versus New Jersey at this juncture of the season, which is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fireworks, a lot of offensive firepower. That's going to be fun. But sticking with this game for the Penguins, this is a team that they have really, and I mean really, have struggled against ever since the Devils have kind of, revamped their team and gotten this core in place. Their team speed especially has given them so many fits over the years. The Penguins only 2-7-1 in their last 10 games against the Devils. They played them once earlier this season in New Jersey, usually a place where the Penguins play really poorly, though they did win one time at the Rock last year. It was a great comeback in the third period, but this time they got shut out in New Jersey, and the Penguins really didn't do much of anything right in that game. They didn't defend very well, and they couldn't get the offense going. The Devils were very stingy in that game against the Penguins, and they've been stingy quite a bit this season. That was actually at the time where the Devils were playing some of their finest hockey of the season, because that was like an 8-game stretch where they were holding every opposition, every team, to less than 24 shots a game. Like, they were playing that well in their own zone. Credit to Sheldon Keefe for the way that he has been able to get this team to defend. It was not like this under Lindy Ruff, I can assure you people, but they're also getting the scoring this year. That said, the Devils come into this game a little bit cold. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. No Jacob Markstrom tonight, who has crushed the Penguins throughout his career. He shut out them earlier this season. It'll be Jake Allen for them tonight. Also, doesn't look like Nico Hischier will play either. He is week to week right now. He's been one of the best players this year. He's one of the best two-way centers in the league. So 2 pretty big breaks for the Penguins right there in a game that if the players that is, want to keep saying like, oh, it's not too late for the playoffs, it's not too late to the playoffs, then this is a game you really got to have heading into the weekend back-to-back against Philadelphia and New Jersey. So, Pat, this is going to be quite the test for the Penguins, because you look up and down this lineup, they can run 4 lines at you. I mean, they got Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt on their top line. They got Timo Meier with Dawson Mercer on their second line. Stefan Nason, who has 18 goals on their third line. You have Thomas Tatar and Curtis Lazar on their fourth line. Jack Hughes leads the team in points, 21 goals, 61 points in 54 games. Jesper Bratt is over a point per game this year with 16 goals and 59 points. Timo Meier has 15 goals. I already talked about Nason. Dawson Mercer has 13 goals. This is a team that can hurt you with any line that's on the ice. So the Penguins going to have to be, again, very diligent with the way they play tonight.
Yeah, you went up and down their lineup there. This is an obscenely deep team in New Jersey. Yeah, they're not going to have Hischier, who leads their team with 24 goals. But again, you look up and down this lineup, they've got killers all over it. And the thing that's been most impressive to me about the New Jersey Devils over the past few years, and it doesn't really even matter who has been coaching them, is that they've taken their old brand of being a neutral zone trap, slog kind of a game, lean on a great goaltender, and only capitalize on your opponent's mistakes, is they've kept the best parts of that, in the sense that they're a very stingy defensive team, but they crush you in transition. They are blazing fast. This is the main issue the Penguins have had with the New Jersey Devils over the past couple of seasons is that they simply can't match New Jersey's team speed, because up and down their lineup, it is just burner after burner after burner. And not only do they kill you in transition, they are extremely effective in the offensive zone, whether it's a heavy forecheck in putting a lot of pressure on the opposing defense, really solid possession, whether it's working the puck around, opening guys up, finding mismatches, or simply just playing extremely fast in the offensive zone and leading to disorganization of their opponent because of how fast they're playing. This is a team that just plays really well in all three zones. And again, it doesn't really matter who's been coaching them. Yeah, under Lindy Ruff, they were not very good defensively, but they still had the horses to, at the very least, be competitive because of how deep this team is. But under Sheldon Keefe, they've become more defensively responsible. Like you said it about the last time the Penguins and the Devils met, the Devils really just cruised to a 3-0 win. The Penguins got all of 12 shots on net, and this wasn't a part of the season where the Penguins were going through a malaise and looking like a team that was just destined for a lottery pick. This was right smack in the middle of that December run when the Penguins were starting to maybe make believers out of us. And the Devils just came in and completely quashed that in a surgical 3-0 win. So this is a Devils team that, like you said, is not likely to catch the Capitals for the top of the Metro. The Caps are opening up a pretty sizable lead in first in the Metropolitan Division. So like you said, we'll probably get a Carolina, New Jersey first round matchup, and that will be a whole hell of a lot of fun, because that is those are two teams that play at 1,000,000 miles an hour and will just trade haymakers back and forth. But back to the Devils. For the Penguins tonight, it starts and ends with having to play a complete 60-minute game. This is something we've seen out of them a couple of times over the past 2 weeks. Despite the losses on the long road trip, the wins that the Penguins did get on the long road trip, they played a very responsible, very good 60-minute brand of hockey. They were good in the defensive zone. They took advantage of the opportunities they got in the offensive zone, and that is only going to be heightened tonight against New Jersey.
100%. For me, I think it starts and ends with stopping Jack Hughes, with the way that he is just so dynamic in the offensive zone. He will crush you as soon as he gets going. The way that he's able to break so many people's ankles on the ice is unparalleled. He is probably one of my favorite players to watch in this league when I'm not watching the Penguins. Like, he's that good, people. So that's priority number one for me. And again, man, like, it's really all about, after that, stopping their cycling in the offensive zone. The Penguins have to find a way to be simple with the way they play in the defensive zone and not let the Devils start to cook with their cycle game, because if they start doing that, you're going to have a lot of, 45-second, 60-second, heck, maybe even a lot of 90-second shifts with the way the Devils are able to cycle and get a lot of chances. So those, to me, are the two biggest priorities for the Penguins if they want to win this game. But I think that'll do it for this first segment of today's episode. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to continue this discussion about the Devils and how the Penguins can potentially get a win against them tonight. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it so easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win a $200 bonus bet, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Amp. So, Pat, some more keys to victory for tonight. Once again, Penguins power play has to be better in this game than it was against the Devils. The Devils were super aggressive on the penalty kill in that first matchup. They were coming up really high to the Penguins power play, and that was causing them fits. You know, you see Carolina do something like that as well. Those ultra aggressive penalty kills really give the Penguins problems, even though they have, coming into this game, the sixth best power play in the league. Those ultra aggressive kills where those teams try to make it as close to 5-on-5 as possible just give the Penguins fits, and it just leads to easy clears, not clean zone entries. You're going to see that a lot from the Devils tonight. So Penguins are going to have to find a way, if they get power plays, and I'm sure they will get at least one, if not two, they're going to have to find a way around that and try to win the special teams battle with that. Also, New Jersey, they have the third best power play in the league, 27.9% Penguins penalty kill. It's still been a bit shaky as of late, 17th in the league right now, 78.8%. That's going to be a tough challenge. And then for New Jersey on the PK, Pat, they're fourth in the league at 83%. So best on best with Pittsburgh's power play versus New Jersey's penalty kill, as I said. But in terms of New Jersey's power play, one of the best units as well versus kind of a middling PK that is trying to get back to its roots of where it was earlier this season, where it was a top 10 unit, getting good clears, was being a bit more aggressive. Right now, though, kind of just bleeding chances and relying on either goaltender to make saves. So special teams battle, also something really big to watch tonight with how these two teams are ranked.
It's really cliche to say at this point that games can be won or lost on the special teams battle. I know that's really groundbreaking analysis from your boy here, but at this point, you brought up the fact that New Jersey plays a very aggressive penalty killing style. It is damn near, I don't even think I can say damn near. It is a power kill. They do everything in their power to put the opposing power play under duress. They are in your face. They are fast and aggressive. And there's a simple way to beat it. And again, I hate talking like this because it sounds like I'm a late night TV infomercial guy saying you can fix this with one simple trick, but that's really not the case. But you look at a very aggressive power play and you know that they're going to take chances. They are going to especially pressure you up high. So when you have maybe the greatest fourth line grinder in the history of hockey in Sidney Crosby working down low, focus a lot more of your power play on working down low. Yeah, you obviously would want to give Erik Karlsson, Chris Letang, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Matt Grzelcyk chances up high because of how talented they are with the man advantage. But when you play a team like New Jersey with the aggressive, speed-based penalty kill that they have, you can't just stick to the plan. You have to adapt. You've got to work down low. You've got to force them to bring those guys who bring the pressure up high further down low. And you almost have to use those point players as decoys to where you're going to work the puck up high to them, but it's not going to be a long possession. It's not going to be Karlsson, Letang, or Grzelcyk walking the blue line and surveying the scene. It has to be almost a one touch to where you leave that guy who is giving the pressure up high on an island to where he has to recover. He has to come back down low, and you get that down low mismatch. So for the Penguins tonight, if and when they get the man advantage, make sure that your point men are decoys. One touch passes, work it down low, force them to defend down low. Because then even if you get those guys trapped low, I know this will sound a little contradictory, but this is part of the strategy of pulling those penalty killers down low. You might actually open up a lane or two up high, whether it's the bumper position in the slot or, yes, even the point. But you have to neutralize the fact that they are going to use their speed at forward to be very aggressive on the penalty kill.
This is a classic Sid down low game for me. I think, especially on the power play, he's going to have to really cook down there, and that could potentially open up more shooting lanes as the Penguins defensemen or the forwards come down a little bit low as well. Maybe you get Rickard Rakell cooking a little bit from that bumper slot area. Really, as again, really the Oshie spot, if I'm being completely honest here. Get him cooking right there. You can potentially get some really quality high danger chances if you're able to get Sid cooking down low, bring Matt Grzelcyk or whoever else is out there on the power play at the top of the point, whether it's maybe someone like Carlson out there for a time, Letang, maybe it's someone like Michael Bunting up there before he comes down low to his office in front of the net. You got to bring some of those players down and get those chances, from 15, 20, 25 feet out, etc. So with Sid at his office, man, I want to see them cook, especially from that. Outside of that, you mentioned something that you were talking about the Devils in the first segment. They've kind of blended teams together. And when I say that, it means like, remember those teams that used to trap, right? They've kind of blended those teams into this team, which is all about speed and skill. They've kind of combined it where they're so stingy in their own end, but now they can really drive the offense as well. They can play a bunch of different style of games. It's not just, oh, we're going to pounce on mistakes and then trap the rest of the way. No, it's we're going to come at you full pedal to the metal here. And then once we get the lead, oh, we're going to play stingy defense. Like they can do both. And at the same time, they're also going to keep going for more offense. It really is a testament to how Sheldon Keefe has been able to coach this year with how he's been able to just combine those styles. And it's made for one of the best teams in the conference this year.
Yeah, they don't so much as, and excuse me on this one, Hunter, I know how much you like giving me crap for nerding out about wrestling, but they don't so much as put you in a sleeper hold is they just don't stop stomping you.
Yeah.
They will get you down on the mat, and it's not, they're not going to get down on the mat with you, choke you out, and hope you tap out. They're going to beat you until you get knocked out. And that is something that, as a fan of hockey, I freaking love, because I understand in an 82 game season, you can't play at 1,000,000 miles an hour for 82 games, get to the postseason, continue playing at 1,000,000 miles an hour and win the Stanley Cup. And I know a lot of people are screaming at their radios right now or YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening and saying, but Pat, that's what the Penguins did in 16-17. Relax. They had a handful of nights off. We remember those games where they kind of looked like they just didn't want to be there, but they were two-time champions, so they earned a couple nights off, but I digress. But the thing with the Devils is the majority of the games, they will, whether it's a 1-0 lead, 2-0 lead, 3-2, you name it, they don't just go into a defensive shell when it's time for them to close out the game. They continue doing what brought them success for the rest of the game. And but then getting into what I said and you said about them blending both styles, once they have the lead, they defend very aggressively and wait for you to make a mistake and then use that transition speed. And oh, what do you know? You're down another goal. So it is truly blending their old identity of being a defense first, neutral zone trap, slow it all down team with their modern identity, which is they play the game at 1,000,000 miles an hour and they are going to force you to keep up with them. So it is really a formidable challenge for the Penguins tonight. And listen, they showed, at least against a team like Los Angeles, who plays not the same style. The LA is still a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, a little bit more defensively accountable, but there's still a lot of offensive talent on LA. But the Penguins showed against the Kings that they have at least the ability to keep up and give themselves a puncher's chance in a game like that.
Heck, and also generate. I mean, the Penguins generated really well against, that's the stingiest team in the league. And the Penguins were able to generate offense like it was nothing. Yeah, the Kings, it looked like they were taking a night off in that game. But still, the way the Penguins were able to dominate them in that game and generate the offense that they did, at least hope gives me a little bit of hope heading into this game against the Devils that maybe they could turn this on against them. But with how they struggled against the Devils, that also just makes me nervous considering that as well. But I think that's going to do it for this second segment. Coming up in the final segment, right after we posted our episode yesterday, we got news that Rickard Rakell was being added to Team Sweden for the Four Nations Faceoff, and that was just confirmed actually a few minutes ago by some of the top NHL insiders. We're going to discuss that and a lot more right after this. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. So, Pat, it is official. Rickard Rakell has been added to Team Sweden. Very deserving, and I am just so thrilled for him because he was snubbed when the first rosters came out, And even though it took an injury to William Karlsson to have Rakell added to the team, this is still very deserving with the year that he has had. He's been everything and more to the Penguins this year, been one of their best players all season long. He's been scoring goals, it feels like, on a nightly basis. He is, in my opinion, going to help this team at the Four Nations Faceoff. Will Team Sweden win it? Who knows? I think they have obviously a really good shot when you look up and down this roster at forward. Their defensive group is really good. But congratulations to Rickard Rakell being added to Team Sweden. And yes, people, is this event just an advertisement for the Olympics? Yes, I very much know that. That said, I'm still at least a little bit excited for best on best hockey. We have not gotten this in almost a decade. I am going to eat this up and watch it because I would rather watch this compared to the same nonsense at the All-Star game where really no one is trying. At least during this, I know the players are going to try to win this for their home country, and then you'll get the main course at the Olympics next year. So again, people, think of this as the appetizer. You get like an order of really good calamari. That's my favorite appetizer, by the way, when I go to a nice restaurant. Think of it like that, like an order of your favorite appetizer. And then once this is over, you're like, okay, ready for the main course? That's the Olympics next year.
Damn, calamari is your favorite appetizer. I guess I got to wait a couple more years to really start cashing those locked on checks and ordering calamari at restaurants. But yeah, no, I pretty much agree with everything that you said. I mean, it was truly unbelievable that Rakell wasn't named to the initial roster. Obviously not the first six, because as much as I do like Rickard Rakell, he's not among the six best Swedish players in the NHL, but he is definitely worthy of a spot on Team Sweden. You look at his stat line this year, 23 goals, 22 assists, 45 points. And it comes back to what I said about him going into the year. I think last year was just a failure to launch year. It wasn't a sign of decline. It wasn't, oh, all of a sudden this guy forgot how to play hockey. He gets hurt early, and then he never really recovers from whatever injury he had. It hampered him all year. And NHL players, especially guys like Rickard Rakell, not only are extremely proud, but they are extremely competitive. And when things don't go their way, it becomes frustrating. You start trying to do a little bit too much. You start trying to work out of your abilities, and it just makes things worse. And for him, he just got caught in that spiral last year where he could never get out of that rut. And he comes into camp healthy. He starts the season off very well. He has continued this effort all season long. He's the Penguins' top goal scorer in a season where they've seemingly remembered how to score goals. It's not like the Penguins that were winning cups, but it's certainly not a team like we've seen over the past couple of years where you look at them and go, where did the offense go? It's a year where they're scoring goals, and Rickard Rakell's leading the way. So he absolutely deserves this. And we're going to talk about this a lot over the next few weeks and months, but I do think to keep it related strictly to the Penguins here, I do think this summer his value's never been higher. And if I'm Kyle Dubas, I'm going to Sid and saying, listen, I got a bunch of young guys coming up that you're really going to like. I can go get even more Rickard Rakell.
Yeah, I think this summer would be the time to do it, especially with where his value is. I don't think it's going to be around the trade deadline unless someone just absolutely blows you away with an offer for, like, I don't know, just spitballing here, a first round pick, young player, something like that. I don't think a team is going to do that, but hey, you never know at this point with the way some GMs operate heading into the trade deadline. But as another point you made, hey, Pat, they're just not the worst finishing team in the league finally. And people are going to think I'm joking. No, I'm dead serious. They have been the worst finishing team in the league for what feels like the last couple of seasons. This year, though, they've been still able to generate offense. But this year, again, they're just actually finishing their chances a bit better compared to the last couple where it's been well below expected. But there's something you also mentioned outside of Rickard Rakell earlier in the show where you're talking about how the Devils really stomp all over you once they get the league. That's exactly what happened earlier this season when the Devils took that 1-0 lead. They still came at the Penguins, but you're right. They were just stomping all over them, really not giving the Penguins anything in the way of offense. And they had them in a chokehold, legitimately. Like, they were not giving the Penguins anything in that game, even though they were technically still in it. it honestly at times never felt like they were with the way the Devils are playing defensively. Jacob Markstrom made a couple of really big saves, one especially on Sidney Crosby, sticking his pad all the way out to rob him of a goal. That was probably their best chance in that game. So with him out tonight, they're going to have to really make it problematic for Jake Allen and net. But again, congratulations to Rickard Rakell. Very well deserved, and we look forward to watching him at the Four Nations Faceoff alongside Erik Karlsson for Team Sweden for the Penguins, and then, of course, Captain Sidney Crosby of Team Canada. Very well deserved there. But, Pat, do you got anything to add before we wrap up today?
Hey, you know what this means? With Rickard Rakell added, it's yet another Penguin connection at the Four Nations Faceoff. And for us here on Locked On Penguins, it's even more of an excuse for us to come on here and talk about the tournament. So don't you worry your pretty little heads, Locked On Penguins fans. We are going to have plenty of content during the Four Nations Face-Off. I know Hunter does. I know I do. We've got irons in the fire to get some fun guests on Locked On, as well as, of course, we're going to talk about the tournament, because how could we not?
Fun guests, Four Nations Face-Off. Hey, maybe a trade or two happens because there's no roster freeze during that time, by the way. So maybe some GMs want to keep getting started with some business before the trade deadline. There's also that possibility. Mailbags might return. Going to be a lot of fun for the content even after this weekend, even though the Penguins will be playing for a couple of weeks. We're just still going to have plenty of things to discuss. But that'll do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with another show for you all on Wednesday to recap this game against the Devils and, of course, give you our picks for Warrior Helmet Wednesday this past week. And then, of course, get you all set for later in the week with the Rangers and the Flyers games. So for Patrick Damp, I'm Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Wednesday.